Welcome to the If You Build It, Will They Learn podcast, a show dedicated to modern learning and development. With your hosts, Daniel Mendonca and Scott Babcock.
It's podcast day. Welcome to the show. This is If You Build It, Will They Learn? I'm Scott Babcock, and I'm here with co-host Daniel Mendonca. Daniel, how you feeling today?
Truthfully, Scott, it's a little bit of a traumatic week for me. Messi is left Barcelona and gone to PSG, Paris Saint-Germain. I'm a Barcelona fan. It's a big deal because Barcelona has run the finances of their club so directly into the ground that they couldn't keep the player who's been at their club for 21 years and is the greatest of all time. But hey, who am I to tell them how to run their business?
I find it funny that you're the Messi. First of all, pun, great. Part of your week is that, not your daughter's daycare experience this week. First time going back there, and the parent struggles that are real when you're taking your kids to daycare.
Well, that's been dramatic too. Although been ultra productive during the day when she's at daycare. Yes, first few days at daycare has definitely been traumatic for her, mostly. A little less traumatic for me.
Few tears for mom and dad is normal too, but yes. The kids went back to school for me, and the productivity level in the house went to like an 11, so it's been great. So today we've got something a little different. We thought we'd have a little fun today, try to get some differing opinions. So we thought let's build a little bit of a game or an interaction point for Daniel and I. So we're going to play a game of buy or sell today. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a claim and a statement, if you will, about the L&D trends that are currently going on and where we think the future's headed. And then Daniel and I will individually just let you know if we are personally buying or selling, whether that's the future or whether that trend makes sense. And we'll give you a little feedback on why we tend to believe that, and then we'll go through. So might give you something to think about as you move forward in your L&D space, and hopefully maybe you even agree with one of us. We'll never know. So let's get started. All right, here we go. So our first statement, Daniel, and this is probably a bit of a softball. We'll probably find this one a little easier, but to get the conversation started, we hear this probably quite a bit, but a statement of gamification is a distraction to learners. I'll let you go first on this one.
I'm going to sell that. I'm not sure if we agree on that, but I'm just going to... I don't think it's a distraction. I think it's a way to bring people back to your learning space, your community, your experience, your LMS, whatever it is for learning, and allow them to compete. And I would say maybe I'm going to use this word. Maybe it's a distraction in terms of helping them reach their goals without them realizing they're reaching their goals. Maybe it incentivizes them, motivates them. But in terms of distracting from their job or their role, I'm definitely selling that.
Yeah, I'm going to sell this one too. The reality is we hear this a lot from our clients that if you add gamification, it's a disruption to the day or to their work. And the reality is, I think even if there is some maybe risk of that, the benefit is much higher. And there are enough studies and data out there to show that gamification elements help with retention and engagement out there in the marketplace, that I would quickly sell that with any client to say, no, gamification is actually kind of a critical part of your LMS, not a distraction to their work. All right, let's do our second one here. This one's always an interesting one because I think it's a debate we've probably had on the show too, but microlearning isn't microlearning if it's longer than 5 minutes. So we've probably all heard that one before.
Personal opinion, I'm buying that. I think micro is a bite size in consumption, and the ability to take it when, where, why, how you want to as a user, and be on the go. I love the term just in time training. And I think 5 minutes, unfortunately, is not a lot of time, but in terms of your day-to-day work, if you're on the sales floor or you're on the shop floor of a manufacturing facility, or, on the beach, if you're a lifeguard, or I don't know, I'm just throwing off some random positions now in jobs, but 5 minutes is a long time to take some information, but also be able to come back to it and use it again, which I think is a big part of microlearning.
Well, this didn't take us long. On our second one, I'm going to go ahead and sell this, and here's why. I think that most companies are still in this transition, despite the fact microlearning has been around for as long as it has, and I think there are still a lot of folks that are tackling how to get into it. And I'm going to sell it because I believe that microlearning is about taking your current content and, yes, chunking it up, making it more bite-sized. But the reality is, if your content currently is 40 minutes, 50 minutes, 60 minutes in length, and you get it down to 10 or 15 or 20 minutes, you've made the steps. So I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt that you're making progress. I probably don't disagree that at some point you should try to get it down to 5 or under, but today I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, be very generous in my definition, and say, as long as you're trimming that down, making it smaller, no, regardless of the time limit, I'm going to give you the benefit.
All right, our third topic, Scott, VR, virtual reality, is the future of learning.
I'm going to go emphatically right now. I'm going to say I'm a hard sell on this. And the reality is not that I don't love VR. So don't mishear what I'm saying here, because I don't want the headlines tomorrow to read local podcast host
I'm sure
bashes VR, because I'm sure we're getting
the Nashville Tribune or whatever publication it is. Just Scott Babcock bashes VR.
I think it's the Tennessean. I'm not even sure. Okay. Like, our newspaper is even a thing. I'm not sure. But and here's why. The more work we've done, and we have clients that want to do this. The reality is we want to do this. The more work we do, I don't think VR is in a place where it is in a marketable, consumable place where every user would be able to use it. And this is not even some of the obvious stuff, which is probably like just hardware procurement. We had a client who was talking about getting Oculus headsets as an example for their event. And the reality is it was going to cost them like a quarter of their allotted budget just to get the headsets, not to even ship them out. So that's obviously a hurdle for sure. Right now, though, from an LMS and a learning space, the access point, how things launch, it's still a bit muddy, and it needs a lot of refinement to make it easy for people to access. And then lastly, and this is one I think we often forget about, and I don't have a solution for this, is that it's a large number. 40-50% of people, I believe, tend to feel like nausea while using a headset. So for it to be a mass consumable option for your overall audience, I think there's a lot of hurdles that still exist. Is that to say it won't get there? Maybe, but I just don't see it as a long-term viable solution beyond an experiential and a gamified learning environment today. I'm not sure I see the future of learning in it.
I definitely can see your points here, Scott. I'm going to buy this, and I'm going to say that it is going to be, and I'll throw in, I'll call it mixed reality overall. So virtual reality and augmented reality will be the future of learning. But I'm going to put a little asterisk next to it. I'm going to put a caveat there. My caveat, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to do that or not during this segment. What I'm going to say is, in its current form, it is not possible. So I think that it will be something that is widely commercialized, and it's going to be readily available at some point and accessible, whether it's on our devices or new different phones or different types of devices that come out, and it will be the way content is delivered primarily at some point in the future. Now I don't know how long that could be, but not in its current form. But I will buy that it's going to be a major part of the future of learning. I just wanted to add in on this topic that I think I always find it funny with things like VR. Even 5 years ago, people were ready to say that VR as a whole, not just for learning, but as a whole, as gaming and all of that, was already a consumable and widely available, when the adoption rate was like 9% of people had like tried VR. I still think we're in the first inning in the VR game, and I think there's a lot more to go for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate that you took our game and decided to make up your rules as you played. So to add that asterisk, and let's face it, hope is an asterisk. So I love it. Do not mishear me. I think VR is incredibly fun. It's incredibly cool. I think there's application for it. I just think those hurdles, I think it's an unknown how long it's going to take to get us there. So I like that we disagree a little on that one, although it was a little tepid with the asterisks. I'm going to say I wanted Daniel to jump whole hog into that and just say, no, committed. But that's all right. Here we go.
All right, Scott, next one. Let's see how we this shakes out here. Your an LMS, should include functionality beyond learning components.
I'm curious because I think I know where this one's going to go for between the two of us, but I am a hard sell on an LMS including additional functionality, and maybe just very high level. We'll talk about maybe what that means, or at least what my opinion of that is. I have seen and been reading articles more and more where there seems to be this movement towards your learning management system or your learning experience platform or whatever, including your talent management and your performance management, your sales tracking. And the reality is, I think those systems are great integrations, but they should always be a standalone option that lives outside of your learning system. I think when we talked about distractions from gamification, I think the ultimate distraction for your overall learning culture is by starting to drop in those extra features that start to maybe convolute what the purpose or those objectives are in your platform. I don't think they have a place there personally. I would keep my learning management system clean. Now, maybe I'm just an old man yelling at the clouds at that point. I'm not sure. And I like my traditional, very super traditional, but I am a hard sell that any additional functionality should live in your learning system.
All right. I'm glad you finished up there with a nice confirmation that you are selling this statement, Scott, because I think you know where I'm going. I am buying this statement. And the main reason why, and it's for a specific audience. So there is an audience out there for learning management systems and learning platforms, brand advocates called extender enterprise users. There can also be explained as B2C platforms, business to consumer platforms, where basically you're selling to your customers. So it's very prominent in retail and manufacturing. Consumer electronics, it's a really, really popular thing in consumer electronics. We dabble in it quite a bit, where you are selling into the places, or you're training the people who are selling your products on the front lines, whether the retail sales associates, distributors, dealers, etc. In those moments, combining learning and the selling of a product, or other things related to the sale of the product, the pitch of a product, those sorts of items, I think there's a fantastic connection of being able to kind of have a learn, sell, earn program, and rewarding that and gamifying it and incentivizing it to help create brand advocates in your kind of omni-channel approach. So I'm buying this because I think those two merge really, really well together. I understand your point. This is a big, strong place in our relationship, Scott, where I understand how you feel, but I don't agree with how you feel. I understand why you feel. I hear you, but I don't care. No, I'm kidding.
We agree to disagree, sir.
Yes.
Agree to disagree. All right, I will step back in. So our next one, and this is an interesting one because I'm gonna make the statement and it'll probably be super confusing. So we'll probably have to do some explaining. But the way it gets phrased is AI, or artificial intelligence, hot topic, solves all of your L&D automation needs. And so I'll quickly give some context, and then Daniel, I'll let us know whether you're buying or selling this. When we talk about artificial intelligence, we're talking about the ability for the system to analyze data, attributes, trends, things like that within your platform, and then make your recommendations out to the system, or sort of automate that flow of information to your users. That's where we're headed with this statement.
I'm going to buy this. I'm going to buy it because, I don't think it solves all of your needs, but I think it creates the experience. We talk about delivering content and information to the users who interact with it the way they are used to consuming it. And I think that's how users, whether they know it or not, are used to consuming that information. We talk about TikTok algorithms all the time. Your For You page quickly becomes very specific. I know Scott was sending me Excel tips and trick TikToks this morning about them. I mean, mine are very, very soccer focused around, some other things. I'm sure producer Sabrina's TikToks are very different than Scott and I's. Everybody's are different like that. I think Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus a little bit less, but Netflix for sure is going to deliver up the items that are specific to you based upon the data that they collect. And I know for a fact that Netflix even delivers different banners based upon your demographic, where you've been, what you've taken, the location you're in, or sorry, what you've seen, the location you're in. So I think when it comes to learning, delivering recommended content or voluntary content, elective content, based upon what you've previously taken, based upon AI, definitely solves a large quantity of L&D needs.
I'm gonna come with the Daniel level of fervor on this that we saw before, and mine's almost asterisk. It's a softer sell on this, and here's why. And this was cleverly worded in a way that let me kind of dance around and sort of take the other tact, truthfully. But I love the notion of curated experiences and personalized experiences, and I think that ultimately artificial intelligence is probably the way we get there from an automated standpoint. So I want to say I buy it because of that. Here's why I'm selling it. And right now, I think it's simply that I am yet to see a really solid approach on the use of artificial intelligence in platforms in general. I see that term a lot. We hear it a lot when we talk to clients. They want to get to a place where AI is a part of their plan. And when we say, cool, how do you envision that coming to place? They're like, what I want is AI. And you're like, yes, I understand. But how would you define it? Like, we want to help you get there. And they're like, yes, but I need AI. And we're like, yeah, we're all agreed you want it. But what does it mean? And I think that is the definition where I'm still struggling a little bit. And so I'm a soft sell because I want it to be a thing. I definitely think it's headed there. What we tend to find is I want to be able to make recommendations to a user. And we talk about the automation side of it. A lot of times what ends up happening is that's still very heavily driven by like the administrator of the site making recommendations, which is not really where artificial intelligence is taking over and making choices within the platform itself. It's still driven by manpower where they're sort of assigning things. And I think that's the gap today. I think we sort of have this convoluted definition of what AI is in the L&D space in a lot of places or how we're going to apply it. So again, I'm a soft sell. I want it to be a buy, but I'm not quite there yet. Our last one, I thought we'd try something a little different. We haven't talked about this topic, so I thought it'd be interesting to get it out on the table and let us discuss a little bit. I think the other topics we've maybe at least explored briefly on different episodes. So, but this one should be brand new. A flipped classroom works within a corporate learning and development environment. So really quickly, again, we'll give context on what a flipped classroom is if you're not familiar. Traditional classroom, I am a facilitator or a teacher, and I am disseminating my information off of my PowerPoint slides or however I'm choosing to present information, and I'm sort of delivering information. Doesn't mean we want to have breakouts and interactives and built in, but ultimately I'm guiding the whole experience. A flipped classroom, I might pose a problem statement or a question or an inquiry to the class and then give them time to research, investigate, self-teach a bit, formulate an answer, and then teach that back to the class with my guidance and direction and advice, but not necessarily me delivering the information, letting the students ultimately describe and facilitate the conversation. So with that in mind, Daniel, do you believe that a flipped classroom works within the corporate L&D space?
I need Kramer's like buy button. I love this concept. Specifically, speaking of learning styles, this is an opinion because this is how I prefer to learn. And you are looking at the guy who did very average on all exams and tests throughout his university career, but case studies, assignments, projects, presentations, I did very well because I love being presented with a problem and having to come up with a solution and then teaching people why that's the solution. I'm also in sales, so I can be a little convincing in my approach, but I love the concept of here's your problem, get into your group, discuss it. This is pretty much how my entire the A coaching license that I've talked about in the past that I'm in right now for soccer is structured. And I think from a corporate perspective, there are so many situations where whether they're sales, based situations, operations based situations, all of those where the people who are in the corporate office who typically would be teaching don't always have the best solution. They're not the players on the field, to use a sports analogy, and being on the field matters. So I think I think creating these situations can also be an area where you get to see 4, 5, 6, 7 different perspectives as you go into breakouts or different groups and come back with a lot more information than if you were talking top down of like, this is how we want to do it. Because you could be in a situation where when you're giving that kind of traditional outlook of people not buying in because they're like, this isn't realistic. This is not how it's done. So I love the idea of flipped classrooms. I love the idea of different perspectives. And I think that's the biggest thing that this gives you. So I'm a big, strong buy.
We're not going to end the show on controversy, unfortunately, today, but that's all right. I am 100% a buy on this. I will tell you that the conversations we tend to have with our clients is, a classroom doesn't work this way, or what if they come up with the wrong answer or whatever. And again, it's not to say there's not a facilitator in the classroom. But I love all things about this. And here's why. The whole point in my mind of what we're trying to do in any learning context is disseminate information and help you make changes in your behaviors. Well, if you kind of start with a position that you have to make the leap of faith to understand what knowledge you have, what knowledge you need to attain, and then apply that to a thinking model that says, I'm also going to create a solution out of this, I think you're already starting with a behavior shift. You're already thinking about how would I do this differently? How am I going to approach it with action, not just passivity? And so for me, I think your learning objectives are so much more clear with a flipped classroom. I love your notion of like the perspective too. That would be one of the places I would go. Typically, if you've got a lecture and that's being delivered to you, you're getting that person's take. Now, it's not to say it's wrong, but you're getting that one view and one definition and one way of describing something out to you. And again, if it's an expert or someone who's really, really good in their field, not to say you shouldn't listen to them, 100%. But when you do this flipped classroom, you get a lot of different opinions. We have talked about this on the show, that my favorite thing to do as just a goofy exercise is pose a question to my kids and see what kind of silliness they're going to come up with, because they're children and their minds are still very creative and they haven't been boxed in by reality at any point in their life that often can limit what an adult is willing to see, if you will. And so I think you get that when you do that with a classroom. You can put 5 different groups together, ask them to solve a problem. They'll come back with 5 different solutions, and all of them can be different ways of doing the same task, but it shows that flexibility, it shows that ingenuity, and it shows you that if you truly look at your behaviors and actions, you can start to apply the knowledge you have, and it gives you that different lens. So I love flipped classrooms. I'm a hard buy on this one as well. And that's a fun way to end the conversation, I think, today. So thanks for playing the game, Daniel. I had a good time. Different conversation for us. I'm glad we differ on a few things. And look, that's healthy debate is always, it helps us grow. So it is that time. We like to end the show on a happy note. We like to share a little positivity with our audience, a little energy, what's going on in our lives, just a little something to say that the world is bright and energetic. And so I'm going to go first. This is a little different than some of our others, but it turns out my children like steak. And that seems weird, but so my wife, she'll eat the occasional steak, but it would never be something she would ask for at dinner or like go to a restaurant to get, typically maybe more than maybe once a year or something like that. I, on the other hand, love a well done steak. So not well done. That's a
Scott, you almost got me excited there.
That is a sin against humanity. A well prepared steak, I should say.
Thank you.
Yes, not a well done. That's an awful, awful tragedy. But it turns out my 9 and 7-year-old are steak connoisseurs now. So we actually made steaks the other night. It was great. Did a little grill out. And now that is the only thing they've asked for dinner for the last 3 or 4 nights. And so I am super excited that at least I have steak buddies in the house. And we're graduating. We are growing up and maturing past chicken nuggets and mac and cheese, which are, again, they're staples. They have their place in the world. But I have steak friends in the house now, and maybe I'll get one more than a couple times a year. So pretty excited about that.
That is good. Steak is delicious.
It is.
I
miss traveling, because we always, like, when we would travel places, we would always go to like steak places, and they were delicious, and it was a great place to hang out.
No, I agree. Hopefully we can start traveling. Scott, I think you're traveling next week, aren't you? Are you not?
Mm-hmm. I am traveling next week.
Travel.
I actually get to go meet a client for a day, which is kind of different and fun. But so I'll be in Texas. I'm hoping fingers crossed for some good Texas barbecue next week.
Nice.
Clearly, I have some food on the brain today. So
sounds good. My positivity point just builds positively off of last week's positivity point, where I talked about the Olympic final. The Canadian women's soccer team, or football for our European listeners, won gold. I will not say that it was an upset, but I will say they were the underdog. I was cautiously optimistic / also pessimistic about what the result was going to be. I didn't think they were going to win when I looked at it objectively, but I will tell you that I was very excited when they did. And yeah, Olympics, we talked about it a lot, so we won't go into that. We're great, but this was a great way to cap it off. Big win. A lot of athletes that I coach were very, very excited. So that was a really positive moment and a great way, for the weekend. And yeah, it was great.
Interesting take on that is that Daniel and I actually shared that moment together.
We did.
Yeah,
we did.
They were playing in the morning, and we were actually on a call together brainstorming on some stuff. And he was super distracted, like not listening to anything I said, and I didn't know why. And he's like, "The women are playing right now,"
and it's like, a shootout. Really? And it's a shootout.
And it was at the end, and I was like, "Oh, well, I'll throw it up on my screen, so at least we're sharing this moment." But my screen was, I don't know, 10 seconds faster or something like that. And he's like, "Oh, it's the last kick. If they score here, they win." And I'm like, "They already won." And he's like, "Wait, what?" And I'm like, "Well, I watched it. Like, I don't know what you're talking about."
So Scott ruined my happiness. So that's just no. We did share that moment together. It was fantastic.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. And then, truthfully, after that, like there was all the video. They were doing all the things that they do after a championship and following the players around and showing the celebrations. At that point, our meeting still had 20 minutes left, and I had lost Daniel completely. Like he was not even looking at me. He was staring off at another screen. Yeah. Having a good time with Oakley. And
isn't that great. So isn't that like normal meeting, Scott? I just kind of trail off at the end now.
Yeah. I mean, look, at least this time you had a reason. But yeah, so no, it was fun to share that together a little bit, and just coincidentally happened to schedule a meeting right during the gold medal match. So. All right, that will do it for us today. I'm Scott Babcock. He's Daniel Mendonca, and we will talk to you next week.
Have a good one, everybody.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the If You Build It, Will They Learn podcast. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. Join the conversation by emailing us at podcast@haylight.com. Find us on social media at Build It, Learn It, and be sure to check us out on the web at www.haylight.com. That's HALIGHT.com.